I try to tell the story or think about that day, I don't remember it. It's like it never happened. It feels like you're in a world where everyone's lying to you. I asked my parents, is the accident real? But the actual memory doesn't exist.
Following an accident, his parents feared for his life.
Especially the Faulkners of West Seneca. Their son Matt beating the odds in what many say is a miracle.
The car Matt was riding in was hit at Transit in New Bullis in West Seneca.
Serious trauma to his head. He was in a coma for 40 days.
Doctors expected the worst.
Severe head trauma. He spent 3 days in a coma.
And
Ferrari joins us with his story of survival.
Matt suffered a serious brain injury and slipped into a coma.
But it's amazing he's still alive.
So he suffered a traumatic brain injury.
Another vehicle slammed into his passenger side of his vehicle.
After a car accident,
After someone T-boned his friend's car.
His life changed in an instant.
Some doctors held little hope for a recovery.
West Seneca teenager who spent 2 months in a coma.
After this car accident, this 18-year-old man spent 40 days in a coma.
2 months in a coma.
It's completely wiped from my memory. My name is Matt Faulkner. I go to Canisius College. I study economics and finance with a minor in business. School is tough this semester. I'm in three classes, 9 credits of economics curriculum, and I'm also taking marketing and history. I'm trying to figure out. T for tunnel. I like coffee a lot. Drink it probably way too much. I was in a very bad car accident my senior year of high school, and it was near fatal. I was in a coma for 6 weeks and in the hospital for over 100 days. A week after I arrived in the trauma ICU, the neurosurgeon told my parents within that first week that they would probably be making the tough decision to pull me from life support within a year. The only real condition I'm in is different nervous system problems. I have trouble with motor skills, motor speech, stuff like that. Cognitively, I am complete. I'm doing this well after they told me I may never walk or talk or, be able to do well in school again.
Mercy Flight 6, Mercy Flight Radio.
Mercy Flight 6 Radio, about, 3 miles, a minute and a half, I feel like.
Matthew arrived at ECMC as a result of a car accident. It was very severe.
Springbrook 9-1, 4624. They said, for the medic there, RSI and bring Valium.
On the day of the accident, the truck came, it had its turn signal on. I was the only right-hand turn around that it would even be able to make. So apparently it had left its turn signal on for a really long time after it had been done switching lanes. And I pulled out because I was going to make my left-hand turn. And the boys were like, Heather, what are you doing? There's a truck. And the last thing I said was, it's turning. And then we got hit.
Still alive. He survived this car accident back in March after someone T-boned his friend's car. He spent...
Mercy Flight 6, contact Springbrook 9-1, please, 4624. Transit in the 400?
Yep, we gotta have the bird, and I'll notify you for a landing zone.
He was a backseat passenger. He was ejected and found to have no heartbeat by the first responder paramedics. Fortunately, his treatment started with a drug, epinephrine, that started up his heart.
The day of the accident, he wasn't responding at all. Text him again, do you need any deodorants? Do you need any of this? Do you need any of that? Nothing, no responses. And I started to get that flippy feeling in my stomach. Got home and I went right to the answering machine, which is something I don't normally do. And I ran right to the machine, and that was how we found out that there was an accident, and it was ECMC on the phone, on the machine. Just telling us that there had been an accident and that Matt was at ECMC and to come right away.
We hadn't spoken with anyone who Matt was with at the time, so we had no idea what we were walking into. It certainly was a little bit of a state of panic. It felt like the ride took forever. Again, it was just such a mystery, not knowing what you're going to find out once you get there.
It's fast. I mean, you know that. It's 20 seconds to scan the head. And we pan scan. So we have a patient traveling in. The patient's severity is determined with a process called triage. The patient for a severe head injury is what we call boarded and collared, so their spine is immobilized.
Flight 6, visual preparing ECMC 19.
They enter into this part of the ED area, and then judgments are made about the next step. But typically the patient travels into a trauma room, which looks something like what we're seeing here. where initial resuscitation is done with placement of intravenous lines, ongoing frequent assessment of vital signs, resuscitated medications such as epinephrine to strengthen the heart or circulation. Additional tubes might include tubes into the chest to help with breathing, putting him on a respirator, intubating, which puts a tube down the throat to the lungs to give oxygen. Matthew was in one of 4 trauma rooms in the emergency department. He was in the CAT scanner and an ER x-ray, and then he wheeled down this hallway to the other side of the first floor where he stayed in intensive care.
We got there and Matt was just, on a gurney, completely just immobile, head to toe, covered, wrapped, covered.
To see him like that was probably all of those things rolled into one, the anger, the grief. Matthew worked very hard to get to the point that he was at in his life, and just to see it come to a halt like that and not know what it was going, what tomorrow was going to bring was, very disheartening. So,
standard now in medical care for all images to be stored digitally. This is the CT of the head of Matthew. It's CAT scan, or computed axial tomography. It's a series of slices through the body. It starts at the bottom of the head. We're rolling up through the cerebellum in the back of the brain that controls coordination. This area of increased CT density is a contusion or bleeding into the brain, and that's the start of many. And it's the picture of a high-speed, high-energy blunt trauma, typically associated with a deep comatose or deeply comatose patient, and the possibility of very severe brain damage. The images alone can't tell you severity. They have to be interpreted knowing the condition of the patient, the neurologic exam, and the mechanism of injury. And knowing all of that, he is classified as severe head injury. I have to be honest. There are people who come in with Matthew's condition, who die in hospital, who end up in a permanent coma. Patients experience this as a test. It's a test of who they are as a person. If they rise to the test and they succeed, then it's a measure of who they are.
The first time I saw Matthew is Dr. Bennett, my partner for neurosurgery. He requested me to see him, to see if any way we can help him. Because that time, the Matthew was in coma, very deep coma, and in decortical condition. That means the brain cannot control the spine, cannot send out the message, and he has a very severe brain function disturbance, induced the severe high temperature. We normally, our temperature should be below 100, but the Matthew's temperature is always 106. You can feel the Matthew is just like boiling, and it's just boiling, hot, At the same time, Matthew that time the cortical condition.
The night after the accident, I had to explain to my parents what had happened, and they weren't really nice about it. They were about to make me go to school the next day, and luckily I didn't have to go. And I had gotten some painkillers for my neck, but I still woke up at 4:30 a.m. and I just cried for like hours because I'd heard the doctor say, we don't know what's going to happen. I think the hardest thing has just been trying to deal with all of my emotions in relation to what happened and what part I played in the accident and the extent to which I would have been able to prevent the accident from happening. That night was my darkest moment.
The doctors are all just giving you all this information and you don't even know really what happened and you're barely even understanding what they're saying to you, and it was just a completely outer body feeling. You can't even describe, I can't even re-describe how that completely felt. It just, except for just, it didn't feel real.
Well, sure, everything was in a state of unknown. You know, the second day in trauma, the neurologist came to us and said that you know, you may have to consider taking him off of life support. You know, to put that in perspective with, you know, what you believe in your own heart, it's kind of rough to hear, you know, because you just don't know. He didn't know, you know.
He's on the verge, on the border of dying. He's struggle for life. That time, he has a dystonia of whole body is on the very high tone. His muscle is very tight, and then that's in that situation, the complications. The heart rate is very high. That time I remember his heart rate is 140, 150 every day. The longer the coma, the higher the death rate. Matthew's situation that time was so, if we make any mistake, baby Matthew will have no chance.
So we're at Old Navy, where I've worked since I was 16, a little over 4 years. I worked here for a year and a half before my accident, and then I've worked here, I started work here 6 months after my accident. You get a discount here, Gap and Banana Republic. I love clothes, so it's not so hard. I mean, sometimes dealing with the customers is difficult. I have had customers patronize me, and, you know, especially when I started back work here, you know, I had a lot of speech problems, and it was hard to, you know, get back into things. You don't have to deal with. You know, it's hard to work with my hands and stuff, and I'm always a cashier. You can't see this. This is the stock room.
Basically,
I've had a customer that asked me what was wrong with me, which was kind of awkward. because I told her exactly what was wrong with me. And then I also had a customer that put her hand on my shoulder after I was done with her transaction. She told me that I'd done a very nice job today, as if I was some disabled person that, you know, is lucky to have a job. People assume that I am, you know, mentally challenged. You know, I'm just working as a mentally challenged person. So people, I assume that is what people assume about me. I tend to look past it a lot. There's a tension between being mentally challenged and being able to, you know, be as articulate as I am, or to be able to perform the duties that I perform. Because it's like, I know I'm not mentally any different, but, you know, physically I am, and it's just people will judge you for that. Bye, friend.
There is no preparing to get through this. Let's just say that. It's just this moment where this takes over your body. There's no words to describe it. You're just in another place. And you're just marching along every day, praying, going there, doing whatever you think that your child needs to get through. Just letting your child know that you're there, even though he is unconscious. That's all you can do. Just keep plugging along. Each step of the way going through this process, all I could do was pray. I couldn't control what was happening to Matt. I couldn't control what the doctors were saying, how long it was going to take, what his progress was going to be. The only thing I could control was my own prayer and asking for God's will to just let him heal, to become Matt again. You know, when he had certain times in the hospital of extreme fevers, and which was the brain fever, meaning that Tylenol was not going to help it. It was all just prayer. As soon as I got that, I would text someone and say, oh my gosh, Matthew's fever is up to 106. Please pray. And that's all I would do, is start sending out my updates to my connections, and then they would put that out to everyone else to just pray with me, pray for Matt.
I'm Father Jeff Nowak. I'm a Roman Catholic priest of the Diocese of Buffalo, and I was ordained to the priesthood on June 2nd, 2012. I came to know Matthew Faulkner when I had a pastoral internship at Erie County Medical Center working in the spiritual care department. I worked with Father Butch Mazer as kind of a mentoring priest in the spiritual care department, and it happened to be the day after Matthew was brought into the hospital that we were going through the trauma ICU and going and introducing himself to different families, and he introduced me to the Faulkners. and got to know a little bit of their story, just a little bit about Matt. And that's where the relationship began that afternoon in the trauma ICU. Matt's journey through his own recovery helped mirror my walk to priesthood as well, in that I walked the journey with him and his family. There were many times driving in the car back to the seminary from Erie County Medical Center where I'd have tears in my eyes, asking God, why is this happening? Many times bringing it to prayer, just praying that this would all pass by, that he would get the cure that he needed, that he would have the recovery that he needed, that he would be able to return to his life, continue his education, graduate from high school, all those things that he worked so hard for. There was really, in a sense, people saying that there's no hope for this kid. I said differently. I trusted God was going to do something for Matt, and I wanted to be there in the midst of it. Every day there was a day of prayer. There was not a time that we didn't get there that we didn't pray, or at least that I didn't pray myself, asking God to, give Matt the strength, give him what he needed to recover from all this and to move on with life.
I remember the one day the doctor came in, Dr. Wong came in and said for Matt to hold out 2 fingers. And he said to me, he's out of the coma. And I wouldn't tell a soul he was out of the coma, because I thought, if this is out of a coma, then I'm really scared, because as far as I was concerned, he was still in a coma.
I couldn't get up on the elevator fast enough to the room, and I remember walking into the room kind of this jubilant person. He woke up, this is wonderful, only to realize that it was a very short step and kind of was silence. I kind of had the wind knocked out of my sails a little bit, because it wasn't what I expected.
He was so he took a direction, and that's the way part of the steps of coming out of the coma are. That I know that now, after going through it, but that day, as a first-time human being going through and witnessing that, when someone comes out of the coma, I expected them to awaken and just be alert and everything normal again, and it wasn't like that at all.
Matthew was unable to speak because language is complicated, and it has a lot of functions, typically in what we call the dominant hemisphere, the left side of the brain, that require large parts of the cerebral cortex to be working. Some very basic sort of raw emotions are activated by language. Language is culture. It's everything that people can be really comes with language. So it's very complicated, and typically patients struggle to communicate.
But for Matt, remember, he still has a renal function deficit. His cardiac function is not very well. And he has dehydration, and he has a multiple infection. This kind of patient give us some misunderstanding. A lot of people feel this kind of patient has no hope.
To me, lighting a candle is a symbol of faith. You're putting out your thoughts and hopes, and that's just the one thing that you can symbolize doing to hope that your prayers are going up. And I'll never know why was it Matt? Why choose him in this scenario? And in my faith, we're not always supposed to just say or question. We're not supposed to question God, in my mind, but how can you not? You just sit there and pray and ask why and what is the purpose, and I hope the purpose is something really good.
High school yearbook. The West Seneca West senior is an honor student, the editor of the yearbook itself. But it's Matt's senior quote that really sheds some light on who he is.
This caption pretty much describes his whole ordeal. It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness.
This is my bedroom. been living in this room since I was 4.5. On weekends, I'll come home from school. This is where I'll stay. I'll sleep in this bed. I can show you some of the stuff that, I had hanging in my hospital room from, my high school, my religion class. This is actually the poster for my benefit. My best friend at the time made this poster. These crosses were made by my 4th grade religion class. I was a religion teacher for 4 years total. I don't think I have a favorite. They're all nice. They're all nice. I could tell you which ones were my favorite students, but I'm not going to do that. I hope you feel better and get well soon. It's from Alexander. This one just says, Jesus, 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 Jesus loves me. And it also says Jesus on the bottom with the J is backwards.
This is stuff that I'd have to go through and find important stuff that you would want, but I'm telling you, I really truly did save everything.
I don't even know what to say about all this stuff. This is just, it's all the support that I received. These two really large posters were things that my entire high school, about 1,500 students, all signed for me to hang in my hospital room. A drawing from my best friend Cody, and it says Tapioca Matthew because that's all I was eating for a while. When I was on a soft food diet, I was eating a ton of tapioca pudding. I loved it. I love this stuff. I couldn't get enough. This is a t-shirt from ECMC that everybody signed for me. I'll never wear it because it's huge. This isn't even all of it, but there's this bag of cards and this bag of newspaper articles and other paraphernalia. There were a lot of decorations hanging in my hospital room, which made it a little bit nicer than just the bland walls. And I felt very loved by my community. It made me feel kind of special.
When one is faced with tragedy, hope is kind of an emotion, kind of a feeling, kind of an assurance that I believe God is with us throughout the journey, that God will provide something for us. We may not have all the answers, and we may not see all the answers revealed all at once, but the hope is the assurance that something good will come out of this, no matter what the result is, no matter what we want to happen, but that something good would come out of it. We will learn something, that we will grow from the particular experience. The cross above Matt's bed at the hospital, it was a cross that personally belonged to me. I purchased the cross during one of my visits to Rome and the Vatican. The cross was blessed by Pope Benedict, as he blesses many religious articles as he appears at his window. And I had the cross in my room at the seminary. And I realized that this was really a faith-filled family, that faith kind of drove things for them. When I walked into the ICU room, obviously being a public hospital, there would be no symbols of religion in any of the patients' rooms. So the one day I came in and I brought this crucifix, and I kind of told them, this crucifix is on loan from you, just keep it in his room. It was blessed by the Pope, and take it from room to room. So the crucifix traveled all through ECMC, from the TICU to the floors. I think Matt's case is really a case of hope because it tested all the emotions. It tested patience, it tested endurance, it tested perseverance and prayer. It tested our own human capabilities of dealing with human beings, in dealing with tragedy, in dealing with illness, in dealing with what was going to happen next.
With his friends and family watching over and praying for him. Some doctors held little hope for a recovery, but one special spring day, a miracle happened.
You know, just putting up our needs or saying, please help me handle this situation. How am I going to get through this with my son? How, you know, what can I do? And just taking some of that off, taking some of that stress off me and just putting it up to our Lord and just praying for him to get through this. Taking some of that pressure off just Mom, who has no control over anything.
Matt's story transcends all of the odds. The odds were pointing in a direction where he wasn't going to recover, he may plateau, and that would be the end of this very vibrant, intelligent young man. But Matt's story shows something different. Matt's story shows and expresses hope, it expresses faith in God, and expresses things that science and medicine cannot even begin to describe.
I started talking and told my mom Happy Mother's Day, and then she said I would never be able to top that gift.
For so long, I truly didn't know if I was going to hear his voice again. And it was just the best Mother's Day present I could ever have.
This was one of the machines that they would have me use to exercise the left side of my body. So I would typically do it with only my left arm, left hand, left shoulder, because that was the side that lacked the coordination. This works the cylindrical movement of your shoulder as well as the spasticity of your hand, because it is somewhat difficult for me to open and close my hand very quickly, so this exercises that ability. I do have quite a bit of difficulty opening and closing my hand, but I'm sure that's much better than when I was in therapy.
I'm making Matt a new splint.
His occupational therapist is helping him retrain the motor skills impacted by the crash.
We're trying to retrain his brain to get a more improved body-mind connection.
Matt attends about 6 appointments a week to improve his vision, verbal, TMJ, and motor skills. His parents say recovery isn't cheap.
I am doing the stationary bike, and I used to do this to strengthen both my legs, especially in terms of their coordination. Because I had a little bit more difficulty with this using my left leg and left foot. I did a lot of different types of exercises during the rehabilitation process. Many of them were especially difficult and painful, just because I had been so weak and so uncoordinated.
Matthew progressed very well. After he passed the crisis status, he recovered very well and had made a dramatic improvement.
Well, for physical therapy, the major milestone was really just learning how to walk again. And actually, I do remember now that it also was a big deal for me just to be able to stand up without assistance, because that requires so much strength and coordination that it was a big deal.
Head up tight. Head up tall, Matt. Yeah. Good job, Matthew.
Just got excited.
Good morning, folks. We're Pilot Stuff. We'd like to add our welcome aboard. Appreciate you getting up early and flying with us. Just going to be a quick 45 minutes.
I am Grandma Susie, and I live at 6730 Northwest Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Right now, the accident doesn't ever enter my mind anymore. I don't think about the actual accident and his recovery. What I basically think about is how well he's doing and how he fought to get to where he is and how quickly he did it all. It was just a marvelous sight to see everybody coming up and doing and just being there because they wanted to support. It's kind of a long process because they have to open their eyes, which is not an easy thing, to get them to do. And then Matthew had to learn how to speak all over again because he had to learn how to control his breath. He had to learn how to swallow, which is just something you automatically take for granted, but that's not the case. And then, of course, he had to learn how to walk again and that type of thing. So it's all separate steps. You do them one by one. But for every stage that he went into, it was like an uplifting experience because he had passed the other stage and now he's going forward. So it was always uplifting to see him do that next little thing. I think I was in awe. I don't know how to explain it. To give you an example, when I went up there and they were going to put him for the first time on his own with a walker, and he was standing up holding onto the walker, and there was a person on each side of him and a couple people behind him, and when he started to walk, he looked like a rag doll. He just had no coordination, couldn't really hold himself up. That was on a Friday. When I went up on Sunday, he was bebopping down the halls all by himself on the walker. So it's just to see his determination and that no one was going to tell him there was anything that he couldn't do. He was going to do what he wanted to do, and he would do it quickly. And all he kept saying is he wanted to walk across the stage for his graduation. The hardest thing and it still is the fact that he is not able to experience his college years the way that he wanted to and could have had this accident not happened. I realize probably in the long run this is going to make him stronger, or it probably will be a benefit to him because everything happens for a reason. But right now I don't see it, and I just think it's very, very unfair. Because I wanted him to just be totally happy. And at this point I think he's only 90% happy. I guess I never really thought that he wouldn't come back 100% like he was before. I just didn't think that that was possible, that that wasn't going to happen. That, you know, eventually Matthew would be Matthew. And he is pretty much, except for his problem with the motor coordination still, and I'm hoping that's going to, you know, get a lot better. I have my Matthew. That's all I ever wanted out of all this, and that's what I have.
I've just become so numb, so used to all this overwhelming stress to my life and to my body, or, you know, all these problems and issues that I must overcome, that it's just something that I have trained myself to always be coming up with different ways to adapt and to change. Speed and coordination. I'm doing an activity that strengthens and tests my speed and coordination abilities with my left hand. It would be a fine motor skill activity, which is something that I have a lot of difficulty with even to this day.
The parts of the recovery when he was first starting to take his first steps again was just agonizing because it hurt so bad, and you just thought, why does he have to go through this pain again after all he's gone through? What, you know, you just wish that you could make that part easier for him, but walking, talking, breathing, just all those steps were just agonizing.
Just to see every day the progress that he was making was just phenomenal. Words can't explain it.
I'm sure I couldn't even attempt to do this when I started rehab. I would say that I believe that my physical ability is probably 80 to 85% of what it was before my accident. When I came into rehab, well, when I woke up from the coma, it was pretty much nothing. It was pretty much 0% of what it is today. I feel like I came a very long way in my rehabilitation process. When I wasn't completely physically rehabilitated, I would say that I was at least partially cognitively rehabilitated, but now I believe that I am fully cognitively rehabilitated, to the point of what my cognition was before the accident. There is definitely a mental delay between the mind and the body. It's the mind-body connection, as my occupational therapist called it, and it is, you know, your brain being able to tell your body to perform certain actions, and my brain told my body to perform those actions, to execute those actions, but it was just delayed in the physical sense. For a long time, my body could not keep up with my mind, and I still do not believe that it can. And that is something that I struggled with for a long time, but I'm sort of used to it now because it's been so long.
Now Matt will achieve a goal he set for himself and for his recovery, a feat many thought would be impossible for him after such a serious injury: to walk across the stage and accept his high school diploma.
Yeah, to be able to walk across the stage after this happening is more than I could ever ask for.
I guess you just end up appreciating it more. For him to be able to walk across stage, especially to walk across stage, is just something that March 2nd we definitely would not have seen possible.
Matthew Faulkner.
After my graduation, after my benefit, after all of the high school graduation parties were ceased, I was kind of on my own, and I was very. I mean, I had my family still, but I was very lonely because it was like all these people backed you to the point of you could walk across the stage and you were alive, and then that was it. We are at UB Center for the Arts. This is where my high school graduation took place. And I'm coming back here now, where I crossed the stage just months after my accident. And now it's 5 months before I graduate from college. I was in a coma, and like on my deathbed 3 months earlier. And then, I'm on stage and I'm walking across it without a cane, without being pushed in a wheelchair, without a walker. I'm walking across the stage basically on my own. I mean, I know I had a teacher behind me, but it was a very proud moment. This was it, all out here. They were all the spectators of this. I was crossing the stage. Everyone was standing and cheering for me, because I had made it. I had made it to the stage, and I had crossed it. This made me feel like the whole community was behind me. Like I had heard about it, but I hadn't seen it until this moment. It was a very surreal moment. I don't remember a lot of details from it. I wouldn't say I was fully awake, fully myself, until probably August, September of 2009, 5-6 months after. My recovery wasn't over, but it was basically over to them, because I had survived and I had gotten over the hurdle of walking across the stage at graduation. Everybody got to see me again at the benefit and at their graduation parties. And then that was it. They didn't really want anything much more to do with me.
I think recovery, again, is the process where we go to a place that we've never been before. It changes us. It changes our life. I think his recovery also has changed who he is. It's definitely changed who I am and my outlook on life, prioritizing what's important in life. And do I think Matt's fully recovered? Very much so. Is Matt the same person he was when the accident happened? Did he enter the hospital? Absolutely not.
I'm living on my own now. I live at 136 Loring Avenue. This is my apartment. I live here. It's about a 3, 4, or 5 minute walk to the Canisius College campus. I will show you around. My apartment is upstairs. It's very hot in these summer months. This is our living room right here. It's a pretty big kitchen. We have a nice table, 4 chairs. So, I don't do a lot of cooking. I try to eat prepared foods mostly. I don't like to cook. And the bathroom is across the hall from my bedroom. It's a nice, quaint, cozy bedroom. I love my living arrangement. I get along so well with J. Marie and Eddie. They're great people. We have a lot of fun times in here, and a lot of good conversation. They're very supportive. I think it's just something that you do in college. You live on your own. I didn't have any doubts of my ability to be independent, but now that I am, it's like just another thing to add to my resume. The only complication of the accident that I have a little difficulty with living on my own is that I have a little bit of difficulty walking down a staircase. It does not come naturally to me anymore. It gets very difficult, very tiring for me. I'm not walking up staircases, which is usually what people dread. I dread walking down a staircase because you know how people will only walk down the right side of a staircase? They won't go around me if I'm holding them up. I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. But who knows? So what I have to think about whilst I'm doing this is I have to think about moving my left arm as to hold my balance, and I have to think about bending my knees. I get out of breath, winded very easily. I'm not exactly sure why. I've come a long way. A lot of people thought I would never get to this point. I lead a normal lifestyle, as any college senior would.
There's many possibilities for him in his future. That's as good as he is now. I don't know what his future will be for sure, but I'm hopeful that he's going to have the chance to live to the fullest potential. And often people after head injuries learn that their life was on the line, they value life more, they realize that every day is a gift, and they're very purposeful. They live better if they reach that conclusion. And I'm hopeful that he'll go that way, that he'll be the best person he can be.
Doing very well. Right now we're in the Calspan building, which is right across the street from the airport on Genesee Street in Cheektowaga, and it is the home of the energy companies that I work for. Specifically, I work for Bid Your Energy, which is an energy consulting firm. Working in this environment, gives me more reassurance that I can continue to live as an integral part of society, as I would if it hadn't happened. So it really, it helped me accept it, and it gave me an optimistic outlook into the future where I can continue to thrive. I got a position in administration here. For a bill. I already saved the bill to the database, but if the account isn't added to the database before I leave for the day.
Oh, you mean to just add it to ACT?
Yeah, just attach the bill. Okay. People here don't really know about my disability per se. Nobody else really is aware that I'm any different. I mean, it's just they get used to the way that I, talk and do things, and then it just becomes an unspoken acceptance. I feel better than I ever have been, or better than I ever have felt at this point. I've been going to the gym every day after work, and I have a lot of nerve damage that I'm discovering, a lot of nervous system, neurological issues with my movements. When I look back at the accident now, it's like it happened, I'm moving forward from it. I acknowledge that it was part of my past, and I accept that it happened to me, and I accept the changes that came from it, but I can't live in that facade that it's, left upon me. I have to just continue to move forward, push on. It has been 3.5 years since my accident.
I guess to sum it up, recovery to me means being able to overstep obstacles and just maintain your position and your goals and try to achieve on a daily basis.
Recovery means progress. Recovery absolutely just means progress, that we're moving in the right direction, that those baby steps are paying off, that your prayers are taking you in the right direction that you had hoped for.
So this is my old high school, West Seneca West. This is where I would have come on the morning of the accident on March 2nd. This would have been it, right here.
Hey man!
Hello.
How you been?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, sir.
So this is room 230 in the English wing at West Seneca West. This is where I would have come for my first block class on March 2nd. I did very well in high school. It was a very great experience for me. I was the editor-in-chief of the high school yearbook. It was called A-Scenes. And I was the president of the National Honor Society chapter here, as well as I was named a student of excellence for my graduating class, and I graduated in the top 10% GPA-wise. So I was actually named as a student of excellence on March 2nd. It was announced over the morning announcements that day, and I don't actually remember it because I don't remember anything from that day. But somehow I knew that I was a student of excellence when I woke up from the coma. I don't really know if there's any concrete memories from the day of the accident, but I do think that I remember little small details of that day.
Recovery to me is you didn't die. You're alive. That's a recovery. In Matthew's case, it's a phenomenal recovery. In someone else's case, it may not be a phenomenal recovery, but as long as you're alive, that's a recovery. But you also have to put your faith in the person. I don't think anyone can ever do anything just with God alone. It's like saying you can always have hope, but you know what? Hope doesn't get you anywhere. You have to have the action to go with it.
We are going back to where we went before the accident, and it'll be kind of cool because I've never been back there. Okay, so right now we're in East Aurora. We're going to go back and visit Vidler's and Taste Cafe, where me and my friends went right before the car accident occurred. You know, what my friends have told me is that we came to this place right before the accident. Was after school? I don't know the times at all. This memory is a strange thing. Alright, well, I definitely remember this area over here. I know that we used this machine. I can't remember what fortune it actually gave us, but I definitely remember this. As of March 2nd, 2009, my life is and will never be the same. I no longer have the dexterity I once had. I have almost zero spontaneous coordination. I have difficulties with motor planning, below average visual memory, mild diplopia, or double vision when I am trying to read. I wear corrective lenses for this. I have dysphagia, or difficulty swallowing thin liquids. I have learned to work around these issues, but they make it difficult to live a normal life. We are going to go to the location where the accident occurred. I have adapted to nearly all of my problems. I live much differently than how I previously did.
I guess recovery to me would be being able to get to the point where you're not caught up on whatever traumatic incident has happened to you, and it's starting to not hold you back anymore, and you can start using it to motivate you to work towards the things that are important to you in life, such as keeping your health and keeping your close ones and working towards your goals.
I did not lose any of my cognitive abilities, nor did I lose any of my ambitions. I may have slightly different perceptions about life, but I can still learn and work towards a successful career. Some friendships from the past grew stronger, while others quickly diminished. It is the path of life. The Tao can never be understood. I look at recovery as letting go, as moving on and forward towards the rest of your life, and looking back only to wallow in the successes of which you came. My name is Matt Faulkner, and it has been 4 years since my accident.
It takes a long time to realize you can't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly. Can't fly. It takes a long time to realize you can't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly, can fly. It takes a long time to realize you can't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly.